You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. Here we go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an episode of the Grant Cast. My name is Grant Baciocco. It is a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for checking this out. Thanks for downloading. And a big shout out to all of our Patreon patrons who help make this show possible. More about that at the very end of the show. What you are about to hear is an experiment. And before we get too far into this, I want you to let me know if you think this experiment worked or if you think it absolutely did not work. And what I mean by working is if the audio quality is listenable. So if you're listening to this and it sounds good and I can do more episodes this way, which I will explain in just a second, you can let me know. If you find this audio unlistenable and you would never listen to anything like this and you don't want to listen to this episode, I want you to let me know, even if you don't listen to the rest of it. Because, as I said, this is an experiment, and sometimes experiments work, and sometimes experiments do not work. And I'm fine with this being a failed experiment. Now, as you can probably tell, I am not in my studio as I am recording this. And the reason that I am not is because I am currently walking, which I'm sure you can probably tell. I'm sure none of this is news to anybody. But to tell the full story, and I think I might have talked about a little bit of this on the podcast before, but back during the summer of the SAG strikes, my friend Russ Walco and I would go to Walt Disney Studios, and we would picket at the Walt Disney Studios. And if you did one loop around the Walt Disney Studios, that was 1 mile. And so we would do 5 loops, and that would be 5 miles. And when the SAG strikes were, resolved, we decided to keep walking. And I would say for the most part, we have walked every Wednesday for about 5 miles. Now, some Wednesdays he's working, or I'm working, or we're both working, or he's out of town, or I'm out of town. So on those days, we haven't walked, but we have walked a lot. And we have 2 different kind of routes that we take. And kind of during the middle of the summer, I just decided, even if Russ isn't available, I really got to go do these walks myself. I enjoy, the walks go much quicker if Russ is with me, but I don't need him there. And if he's not there, I can go do them myself. And so I started doing that. And then I kind of said to myself, you want to lose weight, you want to get into better shape. So why don't you do that big 5-mile walk twice a week instead of just once a week? To be clear, I do walk for at least 30 minutes every day, 35 minutes actually every day. But I just decided like, well, hey, if I do this big long walk once a week, it'll be even better for me if I do it twice a week. And the only issue with going on these big 5-mile walks is that I can't do anything but walk. Now, that is a good thing because I do a lot of thinking. I do a lot of listening to podcasts. So that's all good. But I often feel like, oh man, I can't work on editing audio or creating things. And I've always kind of had this idea in the back of my head that I could record a podcast while I was walking. But what would the audio sound like? What would it sound good? Would it sound not good? And then I was listening to my good friend, Dave Slusher of the Evil Genius Chronicles. Hello, Dave. And he was talking about a podcast that he listens to called Talking on My Morning Walk. And I believe the gentleman's name who's the host of that is Neil. I'm walking right now. So, and recording, so I can't look that up. But I will put a link to both the Evil Genius Chronicles and Talking on My Morning Walk in the show notes for this episode. And basically, Talking on My Morning Walk is this gentleman, he goes out for a 2-mile walk, and for one of the miles, he records a podcast. So it's about a 20-minute long podcast, and then he posts that podcast. And so I downloaded it, and I listened to a few episodes, and I was like, okay, this is what the audio sounds like. I'm kind of a little bit of somebody who believes that podcasts should be listenable, and there are things that make a podcast not listenable. And so I just decided I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to see. And maybe this isn't listenable. And again, if you've made it this far and you don't think it's listenable, stop listening. But tell me about it. If you've made it this far and you do think this is listenable, then tell me about it. The main thing I'm worried about is I am a 51-year-old pear-shaped man. And I don't want the whole podcast to be me wheezing into the microphone. So that's the biggest thing I'm worried about. And I know that may be a ASMR type thing that people do not want to listen to. And so that's why I'm saying, let me know. Now, I'm recording this. When I listened to the Talking on My Morning Walk podcast, I realized that he was not using any sort of special equipment necessarily. And there was background noise. So, because he's outside and he's walking. I am outside and I'm walking on 2 very busy streets to do this 5-mile walk. I will tell you, this is the 3rd time I have recorded this. I've done about 10 minutes into the podcast twice now. And an alert from my watch will stop the recording. So far, so good. I keep checking to make sure that we're still recording, and it looks like we are. So far, so good with take 3. 3rd time's a charm. Right? So yeah, we'll see if this works. And if it does work, then I think the episodes of the Grantcast, not every episode of the Grantcast will be like this, but I will be able to record more, because one of the psychological things that keeps me from exercising is that when you are exercising, you can't do anything else. Like, I can't edit audio. I can't film a video. I mean, I guess I could while I was walking, but I can't film a puppet video. I can't edit, I can't write while I am walking. And if I can record a podcast while I'm walking, at least for part of the time, then I will be more excited to go on walks. I will say, having done these big 5-mile walks, it has, I really do look forward to them. And if I can't do them, I can really feel it. And if I am in a horrible mood, which is often because I'm a grouchy guy, going on one of these 5-mile walks will just cheer me up to no end. So anyway, if I can do this and it's listenable and you don't mind it, and I'm not tuning out half of my audience of 20 people, then it's a win-win for everybody. The other thing is, when I'm walking with Russ, the 5-mile walk takes about an hour and a half. Depends on how fast we're going. But it usually takes about an hour and a half. And one time, a couple weeks ago, Russ was not on the walk, but he called me right as I started the walk. And that walk, we talked the whole time, and that walk went by like so fast. So I'm hoping that this works. And if it works, you will be the person I'm talking to the whole time. And it will be really, really good. So fingers crossed. I'm recording this using my AirPod Pro 3 which is really good with noise reduction. So I'm hoping that does, kind of take out some of the unpleasant sounds. Anyway, that's what I'm doing. So let's get on with the rest of the podcast. I recently had an experience where I got all these work offers in the same week, for the same week. And there really hasn't been any regular work. There's been some Puppet Up shows, but there hasn't been any regular work for me since October of last year when I was doing that Chucky job. And so there hasn't been a lot of work. So I got an invite from a friend who they were shooting a TV show. I can't say much about it because I signed an NDA. And they asked if Toily could be a guest on one episode. And I said, absolutely. So we got that all set. We did the negotiations. The same exact day that they booked my plane ticket to fly out to record this show, because they were filming the show in Louisville, Kentucky. The same exact day they booked the plane ticket, I got a message from the Jim Henson Company saying, hey, we need you to work for a week on this project. And it's the same exact week that I would be flying out to Louisville, Kentucky. So I went back to the Louisville, Kentucky people, and I said, I know you are shooting until, later in October. Is there any possible way we could change my shoot date to later? And they were just so grateful, or not grateful, but they were just so accommodating. Not grateful. Grateful is not the word, because I'm sure I caused a problem. But they were very accommodating. They're nope, no problem. We'll bring you in the next week. And so I was like, okay, this is great. I'm going to get to do both things. And then literally, the day they sent me the updated plane ticket, I got a text message asking if I could work on a very big puppet project, which I'm not going to mention, but it's just about the biggest puppet project you could possibly work on. And there's been some news about it, so I'm sure you can figure it out. But it would be working with a frog and a pig, not to get too specific. But it was also shooting the same week as the Jim Henson Company project. And so I had to tell them that this is the first time that they've ever reached out to me and asked me if I can work for them. And so I unfortunately had to say, well, unfortunately I'm working on this other project, but the good thing was that the person who reached out to me knew about this other Henson project. And so it wasn't something like, oh, he's brushing us off. It's like, oh no, this is another legitimate project and they got Grant first, so Grant will be working with them. So anyway, my question is, why did it have to be all the same week? Why was it all the same week? It's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. And now the thing is, there's no work again. There was 1 week of work for all the puppeteers in the United States, basically. And then now there's no work again. So I'm very grateful for the work. I'm very grateful that I got to do 2 out of the 3 projects. Of course, the third one was a big one, and I would have loved to have been involved in that. But I will say that the project that I worked on with the Jim Henson Company is very, very cool. And I'm very excited for it to come out. And when it comes out, I will talk more about it because I signed an NDA on that one as well. And when Toily's appearance comes out, I will talk about that one as well too, because that was a lot of fun. And it's just so much fun to go somewhere and do a character you've created in Toily and have everybody get it and have everybody really like it and have everybody just be excited about it, be happy about it. So that is a very, very good thing. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about here is my favorite band, the Beths. They just put out a new album, and I went to the album release party. But as part of putting out the new album, they have been doing a lot of interviews. And in these interviews, they talk about the process of making the album. And there was something that I didn't know about the Beths that they talked about, which I think is a really interesting concept. And I may not be getting this 100% exactly correct. So if you fact check me with Beth's history, it may not be 100% correct, but I'm going to try and do my best. When they formed the Beths, when Liz Stokes, Jonathan Pierce, Benjamin Sinclair, Tristan Dick wasn't with them yet, but when they formed the Beths, they decided to come up with a list of rules for the band. And these rules would sort of help shape the sound of the band. And so one of the rules was no songs with a tempo under, I think it was 128 beats per minute, but that could be wrong. But they had this tempo that they said, we don't want to write any songs underneath this tempo. Another rule was no synthesizers. They were not a synthesizer band, so there wasn't nothing against synthesizers. There just weren't going to be any synthesizers on their music. And I think part of that is, because I've heard Liz talk about it before, where there's this one song, Future Me Hates Me, which is a great song, where in the middle, they kind of do like almost like this Beach Boys thing where they're going ba, 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 like they're all singing different kind of ba parts. And she said that they wanted something during that part of the song, but there's only 4 of them and they're all playing instruments. So what can they do? They can sing like sort of this ba, 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 like horn part. And then it would fill out that part of the song. So I think some of these things with like no synthesizer is like, there's only 4 of us in this band. We're not going to bring a synthesizer player on tour with us. So we have to write songs that sound good without a synthesizer. And I don't know all the list of rules, but in a recent interview, and I got to find it again because I think I only heard part of this interview and I want to read the whole thing or hear the whole thing. Liz, they were talking about these rules, and Liz said that when you come up with this list of rules, it's easier to create because you have kind of put constraints on things and you're not worried about like, oh, should we have a synthesizer part in here? No, because the rule is there's no synthesizer. And she was kind of talking about how on this latest album, they broke some of those rules. There are slower songs that aren't up to that same tempo that they had the rule about. But their first 3 albums were all kind of made with these rules. And so I started thinking about that, and I started to think, it's really interesting. And so like kind of the rule that I came up with, I'm starting a new project with Uncle Interloper. And kind of the thing I was thinking about is, for this project, there will be no green screen. So we're not going to have any green screen things. It's all going to be practical. And with Toily, I use a lot of green screen. Green screen is predominantly what I use with Toily for either his bathroom background or during live streams, I put him in the picture with John so they can look like they're in the same room together. So yeah, that's the rule I'm thinking. And I think it's an interesting way to create because you're putting these limits on yourself, but then it cuts down on the choices. Because you could spend all day, analysis paralysis, where you just sit and you're like, oh, should I use this or should I use this? Should I film this? Should I film this? And it's like if you have this set of rules that are like, here are the set of rules for this project, then you don't have to make those decisions. You can just be like, oh, well, should we put Uncle Interloper on a green screen? Nope, there's no green screen. So you have to figure out a way to make it work without green screen. So, I don't know. I thought that was a interesting way to create things, and I wanted to kind of explore it a little bit and see if that's something that would work for me, because I'm always interested in seeing the different ways people create and seeing if those things would work for me as well. All right, gang. I think that's it. I think that is the end of this experimental podcast. Now, we're going to go back to the studio to wrap things up with the closing credits. But again, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Please let me know if you think this works. If you think, no, I don't want to hear you breathing, because that is what I'm most self-conscious about, I would like you to let me know. But this has been fun, and it's been an interesting experiment on my end, and I just hope that it sounds well. And if it does, then there will be more of this in the future. And there will be more regular podcasts, because I'll just know that when I go for a walk, I can record a podcast. All right, friends, I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
This episode of the Grantcast was made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who have gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a pledge for as little as $1 a month. Patrons at the behind-the-scenes level and above get access to a video of portions of the recording of these episodes, and all patrons get access to the audio from these episodes the moment they are edited. Big shout out to all of our patrons, and a special shout out to our patron producers, Kathy Crawford, Eve Cunning, David Akers, Tony Urbano, Brandy, Scott Armstrong, Paul, Ricky Chavez, and Lee Thompson. If you'd like to become a patron and receive commercial-free episodes of the Grantcast before they are released, visit patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly pledge today. And thank you for your support. This episode of the Grantcast is copyright 2025 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com.
You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.